Good morning. It's a beautiful day to be together. I'm Cindy Atlee, and today I'm stepping over from my usual role as worship leaders to this side of the platform. I'll admit I wondered if a sermon titled "The Worst Thing We Ever Did" would draw people in. Maybe not much of a lift. And it comes following a really amazing run of great services. Last week, we were moved by so much love from and for Ryan Ely. The week before that, we had a really inspiring visit from the vice president of the UUA. And the week before that, Reverend John preached a sermon so good, he's delivering it again soon by popular demand. We'll see what we can do. Would it make you feel better to know that this sermon is partially inspired by that bunny? You may be surprised where I'm going with this, though. I won't be talking much about any one specific worst thing we've done. Instead, I want to look at two root spiritual disruptors that have helped set off so much great harm, and then include a hopeful way forward. I'm approaching this through the imaginal realm of poetry, and the poem Mickey just read for us so beautifully. To see and feel what's pulsing beneath events, to take them in at transformative depth. There's nothing better than the spiritual language of poetry, symbol, myth to do that. They elevate the invisible in profound ways that might otherwise go unnoticed. So let's look again at parts of this poem and consider how its essence reveals a surprising truth. Remember how it starts. The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky out of reach, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement. Think of how much of that is all around us. Why would we put that away? Stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, crying closeness from your heart. Something all of us want to feel. It ends by decrying how we remove God from our very breath. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul in every breath. Every breath, we're connected to each other. And in between, the poem laments how we've stripped dance and song and ecstasy, how we've even surrendered the most important questions. So am I telling a room full of Unitarian Universalists that the worst thing we ever did was remove a God from our everyday life? No, but I am asking you to consider the kind of larger spiritual disruption this caused. It turned us away from each other. It separated us from the very flow and fabric of life. This relocation in Harkin's poem is a figurative way to describe what really happened when powerful religious figures reshaped their God into a singular, inaccessible entity and declared themselves as his rule makers and gatekeepers. When enough power gets shifted into the hands of the wrong intermediaries, they often declare who is worthy and who is not. When only certain kinds of people are deemed to matter, is it any wonder that division and domination follow? This gives us a long list of worse things to choose from. Just last month, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution declaring the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity ever, and intensified the call for reparations. The United States was one of only 3 countries that voted against the resolution. 123 were in favor. Let that sink in. And then there's spiritual disruptor number 2, the age of reason, accompanied by Newtonian physics and its hyper-rational, mechanistic worldview. Now the universe was depicted as a giant machine comprised of separate things. People became much like cogs, like parts, analyzed and measured by how much production they could muster and how many things they could accumulate. And where are we now? We're in a world where a wildly disproportionate share of power is wielded by the strange bedfellows of religious nationalism and secular capitalism. We've been cast under an almost impermeable spell of separation, a disenchantment with the only existence we can actually assure is ours. These spiritual disruptors have helped us strip the meaning and connection out of a world that should brim with it, pointing our awareness towards the surface of experience rather than its depth. Cultural anthropologists tell us it's been thousands of years since we lived in more concert with the actual pulse of life. Native Americans speak of a time when the way of the condor and the way of the eagle may have been balanced. The condor representing the path of the heart, intuition, connection to earth. The eagle representing the path of the mind, intellect, and technology. Clearly, the condor has been overshadowed by the eagle in modern Western culture. Sounds like a perfectly dissected left brain, right brain split, doesn't it? But we need both sides to flourish, maybe even to survive. We now live in a fully globalized world where we are almost wholly reliant on each other, irreversibly interrelated and intertwined, truly dependent on our diversity while willfully repressing it. It seems to me that human evolution isn't moving quickly enough for us. It hasn't selected out the traits that make us so susceptible to separation and materialism. So maybe we need to think of ourselves as the frontline contributors to changing that in real time. UUism is value-shaped for this, especially through our values of interdependence and transformation. We can embrace and activate those more fully, even while continuing to resist what's going on right now, while we keep fighting for justice and equity and reparation. Here's a thought about how to start doing that, and it comes from a surprising place. Loving kindness meditation has always been a sustaining practice for me, but over these last 18 months or so, I found it harder to feel authentic when extending wishes for happiness and well-being to all. So one day I made a list of things I could wish for anyone with no reservations, things that could help me and others find greater meaning and do less damage. So here's my list. I don't think those are a replacement for loving kindness, but I do wonder if they're kind of like the steps in a transformative process, and that we could think of awakeness and aliveness as ignition switches for the journey from connection to good. We don't talk about that so much in UUism. Now here's where the bunny comes in. One of the last projects in my 2-year spiritual direction program invited us to reflect on a favorite book or memory of a book from childhood. Mine was the story of Bunny Hopwell's First Spring, which Mickey just introduced us to through the Wonder Box. I'd forgotten what the book was about, but I never forgot the character. I was floored when I went back to read it as an adult, though. In the book, Bunny Hopwell is both afraid and he's frustrated. After coming out of that hibernation, all the rabbits are talking about spring, but he doesn't know what it is. Part of his fear was that he just didn't understand it. He couldn't see it all at one time or all in one place. In his journey to find spring, he discovers belonging, and he also discovers that some things just have to be felt. He finds that the spirit of spring is in everything, just the way I see the spirit of life. and that helps him feel connected to all of it. He wakes up to his oneness with all of creation. It dissolves his sense of separation and infuses him with wonder and aliveness. Bunny Hopwell's story is my story, but I think there's something important here for all of us. He didn't feel that profound sense of connection until he literally woke up from hibernation and experienced the life flow all around him. I think we need to do that too. Am I telling a room full of Unitarian Universalists that they need to become more spiritual? Maybe. Spiritually courageous too. Here's why. Authentic spirituality isn't about a creed or a doctrine. It's not inherently grounded in religion at all. It's grounded in life. Its Latin root is spiritus, which means breath. Life is a continuous process of breathing in and out, reconnecting what's inside us to what's around us. Spirituality is a life-giving connection to something larger and deeper than our surface selves. It doesn't matter if you're a theist or an atheist, a skeptic or a believer. Anyone can be spiritual. What's more, it's been scientifically proven that the human brain can be spiritually awakened in ways that are really beneficial to us and to the world around us. And isn't right now a great time to be awake? Think about all the people who want to burn anything they see as woke right down to the ground. Empathy, gone. Inclusion, out. Pride in culture, freedom and personal identity, off the table. Social justice, who needs that? Each and every one of those things they want to shut down as a call for us to wake up. And we have some surprising tools for working on that. Dr. Lisa Miller says there is absolutely nothing more powerful than our direct spiritual connection to the deeper nature of life. Miller is a neuroscience researcher at Columbia University and author of The Awakened Brain, the New Science of Spirituality. Note the science part of that title. Through extensive brain mapping and longitudinal survey work over 20 years with thousands of people, she's established that we all have a neural network that lights up when we're spiritually conscious, and it changes our brains for the better. This neural network lights up the parts of the brain most associated with connection and love. I'm going to say that again. It lights up the parts of the brain that's most associated with connection and love, and that's where we act from. If you take nothing else away from this sermon, please take that. This neural circuitry allows us to see the world more fully and be more attentive to our individual and societal and global well-being. People with awakened brains have a less fragmented worldview and feel less separated, less isolated from others, less individualistic. They're more in touch with a sense of who we are to each other and with the vastness and interconnectedness of existence. And there's more. Activating this network thickens our cerebral cortexes. It builds healthier brain structures. It makes people 80%, yes, 80% less likely to experience depression, anxiety, or substance abuse. Dr. Miller found that the only thing needed for an awakened brain was a felt connection to the field of meaning and depth. No correlation with any specific belief system. Creeds and rules had no impact, and it just didn't matter where or how people made this connection to a larger reality, although people with an open-minded worldview did that more often. The connection could be felt almost anywhere, walking through Glacier National Park or praying in a church pew. while awed by a sunset, while immersed in the sweet strains of a violin, in the pulse of the people around us and the relationships, and especially in beloved community. I felt it in Ryan's ordination last weekend. There was a kind of held joy that vibrated through the sanctuary. I felt it in Joni Crestwell's memorial service last summer. There was so much of the holy and of love in that room, even as we held grief close. A life force can pulse at the intersection of the beautiful and the bittersweet. Now, those two moments we don't get every day. But awakening our brains doesn't require that. We all have the capacity to do it through a deep connection with other beings or in nature, through a feeling of awe or self-transcendence, in an experience of surprising synchronicity, and in any practice that helps us feel held or inspired by a life force moving through, in, or around us. So many practices that can get us there, and I'd be happy to talk to you about them after the service. Let's take a minute to have a tiny experience of this right now. If you're comfortable with it, you can close your eyes or lower your gaze. Realize that you are breathing along with everyone in this sanctuary. Feel that connection. Know that you are breathing along with everyone in this world. Now see if you can visualize something else that fills you with wonder. Maybe it's something vast that expands you, or something small that enchants you. If you don't find an image, just keep on noticing the rhythm of your breathing. Sense into any feelings of connection that arise and hold them for a moment. And now come back to this room. I know that was short, but you may have just lit up your ventral attention network. That probably happens quite a lot when you're here, so I recommend that you keep coming back. Aliveness itself becomes more fully realized with an awakened brain. Cultivating it is about having an active engagement with existence, being here for our own lived experience and attention to what's happening for others. From this place, we can be more present in life, more able to hold its joy and its despair. Through this embodied presence, we are more compelled to act. Peace can then become an inner stabilizer for us, an impetus for the love that moves us to seek reparation and reconciliation, to build a world that feels more like a sanctuary and less like a battleground. Then we can truly act as agents for the common good, working from the ground of our own beings to spark the moral imagination and action of others. Does all this sound aspirational? It does. So that's where the courageous spirituality comes in. It asks us to put our faith in something that can't yet be seen, all at one time, or all in one place. It asks us to put some dedicated work into our own transformation and expanding the boundaries of our perception and our practice. We can work longer and harder, or already doing, to create change. But if we want those outcomes to be more than incremental, we also need to change ourselves. So take time to connect with whatever the flow of life feels like to you. Invite others into that and into this movement. We need more and larger beloved communities. Maybe it's time we all became evangelists. This does not mean, nothing I've said today means that we're wholly dependent on the awakened side of our brains for any progress. Dr. Miller says we have two awareness modes: the awakened mode, with emphasis on connection and intuition and meaning making, and the achieving brain that focuses on goals, logic, and contribution. The way of the condor, the way of the eagle sound a lot like that. These awareness nodes are about doing and being. They shift us all day long from essence to outcomes. Right now, though, they're not well balanced in our shared existence, not well integrated into our brains and our lived experiences. Integration isn't about careening from one side of our brain to another. It's about managing them from a center. Transformation asks us to recognize the third leg of our existence, the one that lies between doing and being. It's becoming. We are always unconsciously becoming. Our doing and being continuously shapes us into something. But it doesn't have to be something good. Raising our spiritual consciousness gives us more authentic participation in that process. It helps us align our inner self with our outer expression. It makes us less susceptible to damaging societal messages. We can't control this process, but we can become an active part of it. Conscious becoming means accepting that we're always in a flow from what's invisible to what we can see, from the intangible to the concrete. A balanced brain welcomes the power of moving with that flow, not blocking the side of it that doesn't seem the most natural to us. Of course, I think this process is best understood through poetry. I could not express it any better than Rosemary Watola Tromer does in Becoming. Even now, I am becoming wind, something less flesh, more movement, more current, less here, more everywhere. Though the moment I think I know this truth, the knowing resolids me, makes me into clay that pretends it is wind. But becoming clay again, I am destined to crumble, disintegrate, until I am dust and once again one with the wind. How to trust anything then, except this infinite becoming and re-becoming, and whatever it is that is alive inside it all. That, I put my faith in that. Trummer says we are like both wind and rock, always in the process of flowing and grounding as we become more than we were before. And we are not somewhere else in this becoming. We are right here, right now, right where the spirit of life is alive inside it all, inspiring us, connecting us, moving us towards love and good. If we are everywhere, then we are also with everyone and everything. If we put our faith in what is alive inside it all, we cannot forget anyone around us. Our dreams of community justice and a meaning-filled world become more solid beneath our feet. And if we can all breathe in those dreams together, perhaps it will become the best thing we ever did. May it be so. Thank you. Thank you.